obandesu. He had walked the same house in his sleep for 19 nights, the same rooms in the same order, the same dark corridor at the end, getting slightly further each night, closer to the door he had not yet opened, until a colleague described the house from his dream exactly, and told him it had burned down 30 years ago, with someone still inside. Don't follow any corridors to their end tonight. It is time for chapter 125. Recurring dreams have ordinary explanations. Stress, memory, the mind processing something unresolved. Most people who have them accept this and wait for the dream to run its course. But occasionally, a recurring dream has a quality that the ordinary explanations do not account for. A specificity, a consistency, a sense of moving through a real space rather than a constructed one, the particular quality of somewhere that exists, or existed, rather than somewhere the sleeping mind assembled from fragments. He had walked that house 19 times before he understood it was not a dream at all. It was a visit, and whatever was at the end of the corridor had been guiding him there, one room further, each night, with the patient purpose of something that knew exactly how long it would take. A man had been having the same dream for 19 consecutive nights. A house, traditional in its layout, rooms opening one into another in a consistent sequence. He moved through the same rooms in the same order every night. Entrance, main room, corridor, smaller room, longer corridor ending in darkness. The dream always ended at the same point, the beginning of the final corridor. He would stand at the entrance to it, aware of a door at the far end he could not clearly see, and then wake. He mentioned it to a colleague over lunch one day, described the house, the layout, the particular quality of the rooms. His colleague listened carefully, then asked him to describe the entrance, the garden wall, the particular shape of the windows. His colleague's expression changed as he described the details. She asked him to wait, took out her phone, showed him a photograph, an old one, slightly damaged, a house. He looked at it for a long time without speaking. It was the house from his dream. Exactly, not approximately. Exactly the same entrance, the same garden wall, the same windows. She told him the house had belonged to her family before she was born, had burned down approximately 30 years ago, in a fire that investigators had determined started in the back of the house, in the room at the end of the longest corridor, with someone inside who had not been able to get out. He sat with this information for a long time, then asked her which night, 30 years ago, the fire had occurred, and understood when she told him why the dreams had started when they had. If these stories have found their way to you, if you find yourself returning to this quiet room, there is something small you can do, like and subscribe. It tells me, and whatever else watches from this room, that you were here, and that you intend to find your way back. He began tracking the dreams more carefully after that conversation. Not just the content, but the progression. He had assumed the dream always ended at the same point, the entrance to the final corridor, but reviewing his notes, he realized this was not accurate. The dream ended slightly further along the corridor each night, 1 or 2 meters further. consistently, as though whatever was guiding him through that house was doing so gradually, carefully, not rushing, simply moving him forward by the same small increment each night, toward the door at the end of the corridor that he had not yet reached, but that he was now close enough to see clearly. Old wood, a handle worn smooth, light visible beneath it. Not firelight. Something else. Something steady. Waiting. Shakkoi. That light beneath the door. Cold in a way that light should not be cold. I wonder, have you ever had a dream that felt less like something your own mind created and more like somewhere you were being taken? A space too specific, too consistent, too real to be assembled from fragments of memory? Perhaps you have visited somewhere in sleep that exists, or existed, somewhere other than your imagination. Granny is always listening. He stopped sleeping, or tried to. 3 nights of deliberate wakefulness before exhaustion made it impossible, and he slept and found himself in the house again, further along the corridor than before, close enough to the door to touch the handle if he reached out. He did not reach out, woke himself deliberately, a technique he had developed over the previous weeks. Sat in his bedroom in the early hours and thought about the door, about the light beneath it, about what his colleague had told him, about the room at the end of the corridor where the fire had started, where someone had not been able to get out, and about whether whatever was guiding him toward that door intended for him to open it, or simply needed him to be there. On the other side of it, close enough to touch the handle, when whatever was in that room was ready. You are still here. Good. Some stories need a witness all the way to the end. I wonder, how far along your own corridor are you tonight? He told his colleague everything. She listened without interrupting, then said something he had not expected. Said her family had never understood the fire. The person who died had known the house completely, had lived in it for decades, should have been able to find their way out. The investigators had found them in the room at the end of the corridor, not trying to escape, simply in the room, as though they had gone there deliberately, as though something in that room had required their presence at the moment the fire reached it. He sat with this for a very long time, then asked his colleague one more question, whether anyone else in her family had ever dreamed of the house. She was quiet for a moment, then said yes, and that he was not the first person to describe getting closer to the door at the end of the corridor, night by night, and not the first to describe the light beneath it. That was not firelight. I think about the doors we are guided toward in sleep. Most dreams are our own construction, assembled from memory and anxiety and the unresolved material of waking life. But occasionally, a dream has an architecture that belongs to somewhere real, somewhere that existed, and something in that place that remembers being there, that has found a way to reach a specific person, night after night, and move them through the familiar rooms toward the thing it needs them to reach. Not randomly, specifically, this person, this corridor, this door. With the patient and incremental guidance of something that has been waiting for exactly the right visitor for a very long time, in a room at the end of a corridor behind a door with light beneath it that is not firelight. Da. Some doors should not be opened, even in dreams, especially in dreams. Another whispered story from Japan shared quietly here beside the kotatsu. If you begin having a recurring dream of a house you do not recognize, pay attention to how far you get each night, whether you move further through the same rooms in the same sequence, whether the end point of the dream advances incrementally towards something at the end of a corridor. Because if it does, if you are being moved forward by the same small increment each night toward a door you have not yet opened, something is guiding you there, with patience, with purpose, and whatever is waiting behind that door has been waiting long enough to take its time, to move you forward gradually, carefully, without alarming you too soon. And when you are finally close enough to touch the handle, when you can finally see the light beneath the door clearly, do not reach out. Wake yourself if you can, because whatever needs you to open that door from your side has been waiting in that room for 30 years and is very nearly ready for you to arrive. If this story stayed with you, if the dark or the shadow feels a little closer tonight, you know where to find me. I am always here beside the kotatsu, watching, waiting. And if you wish others to find their way here too, there is something small you can do. Like and subscribe. I would not object.